everyone, so I wanted to do something different from my normal content today to talk to you about something important. As you can tell from the title of this video, I'll be talking a little bit today about the African penguin and the factors that are leading to the species' decline. More importantly, I will be asking for your help to find ways to get involved in the conservation of this species. There are many everyday actions we can take to make a difference, and each small change does have an impact, whether immediately apparent or not. If you are watching my content, I assume the Penguins Madagascar and my edits have brought you some sort of joy. At least, I'd hope so. Through learning about these amazing animals, in real life, I see all the more reason to do everything I can to prevent their extinction. I am hoping you feel similarly, and this video may encourage you to find ways to help. That being said, I have made it a personal mission of mine to raise awareness for the challenges the African penguin faces and ways we can prevent the species' extinction. The African penguin. The African penguin, also known as the black-footed penguin, is one of the few species of penguins that prefer a warmer climate. Similar species include the Magellanic penguin, which can be distinguished by its additional cape-like band, the Humboldt penguin, with a pinker face made of specialized skin to regulate heat absorption, the little blue penguin, and the Galapagos penguin. The beaches of Namibia and South Africa are home to the African penguins. They are what's called a keystone species. A keystone species is a species whose presence plays a crucial role in the functioning of its environment. As both predator to many species of fish and krill, and prey to larger animals, the African penguin plays a critical role in the operations of its ecosystem. Aside from their role in the ecosystem, the African penguin's presence in Namibia and South Africa draws in tourism to the local economies, with sightseers and wildlife conservationists alike wanting to see these animals in their natural habitat. Like many species of penguins, the African penguins are very social animals. They tend to live in large colonies, and some, depending on the individual, will mate for life. It appears the penguin credo might have some merit to it after all.
You remember the penguin credo?
What does deep frying in Bisquick have to do with any of this?
Not that one, the other one. Never swim alone. Alone! On Christmas! Don't you get it? Come on, people, do I have to explain this to everybody?
Penguins typically swim in groups, with the exception only being when they dive deeper to catch fish. While these penguins may seem impossible to distinguish from one another, each bird and individuals who work with them, including aquarists, zookeepers, and rehabilitation staff members, are able to tell them apart based on different patterns in their feathers, different beak shapes, and other characteristics that make each individual unique. A long-held theory states that penguins are able to recognize their mates by their distinct call, or accent. African penguins use this especially when it comes time to reunite with their mate when returning home from fishing. Just like humans, dogs, and cats, a penguin's temperament differs by each penguin. In short, each one has their own personality. In general, zookeepers and researchers have found that Adelies can be rather feisty compared to other species. Young Adelie males will usually release their aggression by chasing off aerial predators like skuas from their colonies and the colonies of other penguins. Gentoo penguins are curious yet neophobic in general. Neophobic. means that they are usually suspicious of anything new in their environment. And they will also usually put just about anything in their mouths. So they're a lot like feathery toddlers. Due to the unique sounding call of an African penguin, they have actually been given the nickname jackass penguin. This name was given to them based on their iconic call that sounds a lot like a donkey's bray. Speaking more about penguins' calls, they use their voices to communicate many things. Researchers have identified at least 4 different calls from African penguins that serve varying purposes. These calls can be distinguished by their sound and the body language of the penguin expressing them. A contact call is believed to help penguins find each other, especially their mate. The caller will stand up with a half-open beak and their neck stretched up as far as possible. An agonistic call, like the name implies, is usually directed at other penguins as a warning. Compared to the contact call, it sounds more gravelly. The caller will lean towards a perceived threat and release the sound. Ecstatic displays are mostly used during breeding season. This usually occurs from October to December. One penguin will start this call, and the others will join in. Researchers suggest this is possibly to get attention from potential mates or to denote their possession of a nest. Overall, this has been observed to be the loudest vocalization. The mutual display is used when a mate returns to the nest. Both penguins will likely do a mutual display. They will position their wings slightly away or up against their sides and stand next to each other. There have also been 2 different sounds that researchers have found young African penguins making. As young penguins rely on their parents to feed them through regurgitation of nutrients, sometimes called milk, stored in the parent's crop, they have a specialized call to beg for food. Researchers have found that chicks release a peep, while juveniles release more of a moan. Chick rearing is not an easy process, but for the survival of the species, it must be done each year. Typically, African penguins will lay 2 eggs per season, requiring a parent that sits on the egg to incubate both of them until their partner returns from the sea. Some penguin species will lose nearly half of their total body weight while incubating their eggs. This is primarily due to the fact that most penguins will not leave their eggs or chicks unguarded unless they themselves reach the point of starvation. So it's easy to see that chick rearing takes a tremendous amount of effort from both parents. There are numerous documented cases where penguins will adopt abandoned eggs. So perhaps the idea of the penguins adopting private isn't too far off. Unfortunately, this system isn't immune to human interference and a changing environment. In an ecosystem where overfishing has led penguins farther out for prey, it is taking mates generally longer to return with enough fish to feed their young. It is possible that a mate will not return if they experience exhaustion at sea or are preyed upon. Another risk factor as chicks get older is the annual molting of their parents. Penguins undergo what is called a catastrophic molt. This means there is a time each year, typically around February or March, when they shed all of their outer feathers to regulate their body temperature. Unfortunately, the molting process hinders the waterproof nature of a penguin's feathers. You see, most penguins have a preening gland located on their lower back, just above their tail feathers. This preening gland provides the penguin with a specialized layer of oil on their feathers to allow the water to roll right off. This gives them this slippery appearance in the water, but keeps them dry on land. Sometimes you'll see a penguin preening itself in this area to secrete more oil. When penguins experience molting, they become less waterproof, as this exchange of feathers occurs. This does not allow them to fish to find food for their chicks. Oil spills can also impede a penguin's ability to swim and fish in a similar way. If they become covered in a foreign substance such as petroleum, this can have disastrous effects on the penguin and their chicks that depend on them. Conservation status. This past July, the International Union for Conservation of Nature, or the IUCN, officially elevated the African penguin's status from endangered to critically endangered. This makes them the first out of 18 species of penguins to be listed as critically endangered. For frame of reference, the IUCN ranks all wildlife species on a scale that measures their current presence in their habitat. This ranges from species of least concern to extinct. Now that the African penguin is listed as critically endangered, they are one step away from being extinct in the wild. Admittedly, this makes the situation seem rather bleak, but it is important to realize it is not too late. I'm going to share some details that may be difficult to hear, but are necessary to see the whole picture of what the African penguin is up against. But if you find that this will be too upsetting or actually discourage you from taking action, please skip to this timestamp listed below. Again, the purpose of this video isn't to make anyone feel bad, but to catalyze people into action. The data. Researchers on the ground in South Africa have confirmed that there are roughly 19,800 African penguins left in the wild. Both SANCCOB, the Southern African Foundation for Conservation of Coastal Birds, and Not on Our Watch, NOOW, have estimated that this species will go extinct in less than 11 years. That's by 2035. If we do not do something to reverse this. To break this down for you, there were estimated to be about 1.5 to 3 million African penguins at one time. Yet by the mid-1950s, their numbers dropped to 10% of this original population. That's a 90% decrease. From just 1978 to the current year, the population has decreased 80% in Namibia and 77% in South Africa. As previously mentioned, the IUCN classified the African penguin recently as critically endangered. They have also listed this species as largely depleted. Given the previously provided statistics, unfortunately, this isn't a surprise. However, the IUCN has also found that past conservation work with the African penguin, provided by organizations like SANCCOB, has been very successful. This is noted by the IUCN's listing of the species as having a high conservation legacy. When assessing the threats to the African penguins in South Africa's east and west coast and southern Namibia, researchers found factors such as invasive species, extreme weather due to climate change, and current aquaculture practices to be amongst some of the most detrimental to this species. Many hardworking environmentalists in these regions have successfully advocated for protection of the African penguin's habitat, rehabilitation of penguins, education for the public, and changing of national laws. The IUCN proposes these measures could potentially raise the numbers of penguins in the wild to around 50% of the original estimate. This means the African penguin has a medium recovery potential. Reasons for the decline. There are unfortunately many reasons for the African penguin's decline. Given the drastic nature of this decline, the IUCN noted the African penguins have been largely depleted. This makes it all the more likely that human interaction with the environment has played a role. As previously stated, this population has dropped 90% over the last century alone. Historically, Dutch sailors who colonized South Africa had detrimental impacts on the people already living there and the environment. It is documented that they hunted African penguins and their eggs. In fact, the practice of doing so was not restricted until the 1950s. Another source of decline directly from human action has been guano harvesting. African penguins make dens in the sands and rocks of their habitat. They also use guano to build nests that protect their young from aerial predators like gulls. Unfortunately, guano has historically been harvested as well and exported as a source of fuel. This has left many African penguin chicks significantly more vulnerable. Additionally, predation from natural predators and invasive species, including unmonitored or stray dogs and cats, have impacted the species. Pollution found in the water surrounding their habitat includes fishing nets, discarded plastic, and oil spills, which have all been known to ensnare African penguins. Perhaps one of the most prevalent threats to the African penguin is overfishing. Remember how I mentioned African penguins rely on small fish like sardines to feed themselves and their chicks? These fish are also sought after by large fishing companies in the same area. African penguins, while very adaptive and resilient, have not evolved to compete against the large fishing corporations, just like they did not evolve to defend themselves against animals like dogs and cats that were introduced by imperialism. More competition over prey means African penguins are more likely to be out at sea for longer or to return emaciated. The longer they are out at sea, the risk of their mate being forced to abandon the chicks in cases of molting or starvation becomes much higher. This makes guarding chicks from predators even more difficult. I know these facts are probably difficult to hear. The situation of the African penguins, as well as many other endangered species, is heartbreaking. Yet, I wouldn't be making this video if it wasn't something vastly important to wildlife conservationists, the environment itself, and to me. Nor would I be making it if I didn't think there were things we could do to make a difference. What we can do. I know a lot of issues surrounding climate change and wildlife conservation can seem hopeless when there are many corporations actively making extensively negative impacts on the environment. Still, there are many things we can do to advocate for a better future. Small changes add up over time and can encourage others to make changes as well. Many of these things can also benefit the African penguin directly.
Oh, you're playing dirty priority on this one, huh, nature?
But then it's impossible to keep Toad from going extinct.
Unacceptable, Private. What if nature suddenly decides to do a little spring cleaning in the penguin gene pool?
I don't want to be extinct.
We've got to show nature we're in charge of our survival.
Right you are, Skipper.
I just want to clone things.
No more defense. Time we get offensive.
You got it.
Kowalski, anti-extinction option.
Advocating for legislation change. As previously mentioned, conservationists have historically worked with lawmakers to reform legislation in order to protect this endangered species. We can help these efforts by reaching out to our local representatives and encouraging them to support efforts to curb climate change. This can take the form of phone calls, emails, or petitions. Currently, Only One, an organization which creates petitions to encourage lawmakers to provide environmental protections, has a petition you can sign right now. It takes less than 1 minute to sign the petition and show your support for the African penguin. The more signatures these petitions receive, the more likely legislatures will feel pressured to make change. You can find this petition at only.one/act/save-African-penguins or by searching Only One African Penguin Petition in your browser. Another quick action you can take in less than 1 minute is emailing the South African Minister of Forestry, Fisheries, and the Environment to ask that he take further action to protect the African penguins. Not on Our Watch, NOOW, has made it incredibly easy to do this. If you go to africanpenguin.onourwatch.org/email-the-minister, NOOW has filled out an email template for you to send. All you need to do is add your name and some quick details. Again, reaching out to legislatures, even if you do not live in South Africa, can show them just how important this species is to people all around the world. You can even share this on your own social media to encourage friends and family to sign the Only One petition or send emails to the minister. Responsible pet ownership. Again, if you do not live in South Africa or anywhere near penguins, responsible pet ownership is another thing you can do to make a difference. The decision to adopt a pet should be one made with extensive care and deliberation. It is never appropriate to abandon a pet into the environment. This is often how invasive species can emerge. A great example of this would be iguana's presence in the southern United States, specifically Florida. Iguanas were introduced to Florida as pets, but when people released them into the environment, their population grew out of control and now have become invasive. Iguanas plague the ecosystem by preying on animals which have not evolved to evade iguanas, and by competing for resources with animals which again have not evolved to compete against iguanas. Naturally, this has threatened the wildlife and biodiversity in the area. Another commonly abandoned pet is unfortunately ducks. It is generally a trend for people to adopt ducks when they are ducklings. Typically, this occurs around holidays like Easter. However, once people realize they are not prepared to take care of a duck or meet its needs, dumping them at a nearby pond is a mistake people often make. The assumption that a domestic animal will survive in the wild often has fatal results for that animal and local wildlife. Oftentimes, these animals do not know how to find food for themselves or defend themselves against predators. This can also spread foreign diseases into the local wildlife population. Similarly, allowing cats outdoors and unsupervised poses a threat to local wildlife who have not adapted to defend themselves or to evade house cats. This can threaten biodiversity at a local level. The same concept applies for unleashed dogs in public areas. These specifically have both been problems for the African penguin. Choosing sustainable options. There are many everyday changes you can make to reduce pollution that ends up in the ocean. By now, many of us have heard about recycling. While recycling does have its benefits, there are other steps we can take to aid this process. One of these is choosing recyclable products when available. One example would be choosing drinks from aluminum cans or cartons as opposed to plastic bottles. These are a lot easier to recycle than plastic. This is a change you can make on your next visit to the grocery store. When consumers buy more sustainable packaging in large numbers, this puts pressure on companies to change. In fact, Coca-Cola, one of the leading contributors to plastic pollution, once sold their products in glass bottles. Glass is known to be more recyclable than plastic. However, Coca-Cola changed this policy in the late 1970s when consumers showed a preference for plastic bottles that they offered. Another change you can make to reduce plastic usage at the grocery store is taking a reusable shopping bag. Honestly, having a large reusable bag to load your groceries in after checkout can make transporting a lot easier. An alternative to this would be choosing paper bags rather than plastic. Or some grocery stores even have bins where you can drop off your used plastic bags for recycling. If you have access to clean drinking water, a water filter for the faucet can help reduce the need for plastic water bottles as well. The same can be said about reusable water bottles. Of course, it doesn't have to be the latest Stanley Cup with its matching accessories, but there are many affordable options for reusable water bottles. Lastly, and perhaps most relevant to the current challenges of the African penguin, is buying sustainable seafood. If you eat seafood, there are many options for ethically sourced seafood. Seafood Watch is a nonprofit created by the Monterey Bay Aquarium. It provides a wonderful guide on their website to help you make sustainable choices at the grocery store. Again, when people choose more sustainable options, this applies pressure to corporations to meet these standards. You can find the Seafood Watch's guides by searching Seafood Watch Consumer Guide or by typing in seafoodwatch.org/recommendations/download-consumer-guides. Giving to organizations directly. For many people, we are going into the season of giving. Organizations like Sandcob are always looking for donations, whether monetarily or through volunteering. Sandcob has many opportunities for people to volunteer and help rehabilitate penguins or care for penguins in their sanctuary who are residents and can no longer be re-released. Something unique Sandcob does is its symbolic adoption of penguins or penguin eggs year-round. If you symbolically adopt a penguin or chick, you are able to choose from individual penguins who are currently in their care. Your adoption goes directly to caring for this penguin and rehabilitating them into the wild if possible. You can even sometimes name the penguin you adopt, which is always fun. This could even be a good holiday gift for friends or family. You can find the link to symbolically adopt a penguin at adopt.sandcobb.co.get-involved/adopt-a-penguin/ or by searching Sandcobb Adopt a Penguin in your browser. Personally, I think giving during this season to help the African penguin is very fulfilling. Through donating or symbolically adopting a penguin, I feel as though I am giving back to a species that has already brought me so much joy. If I can help, even a little bit, to give the African penguin a fighting chance, it is well worth it. Further learning. For more information on the African penguin and ways you can help, I highly encourage learning from these organizations, including Sandcobb, NOW, the African Penguin and Seabird Sanctuary, or APSS, and accredited zoos and aquariums. Many of these accredited aquariums and zoos have affiliations with wildlife conservation centers and work with them to provide education to guests and/or to preserve species. Penguins International is another organization that focuses on providing education and collecting donations for various penguin species conservation efforts. Why make a difference? I think we have all learned by now that penguins are not just cute and cuddly, but they are also adaptive and very resilient.
Hearts go out to penguins because we've all seen documentaries of penguins, and there's these little guys that march across the tundra, against the worst of nature, and yet they survive. And I think, not only are they cute, they have a great sense of family. The father watches the kids. I think even when they're lost, they have this uncanny ability to find their young, even in a crowd of they're very special, unique animals.
African penguins have endured many drastic changes in their environment over the last century. Many of this is due to human interference with their habitat. Making everyday changes and/or taking action is a way in which we can take accountability for our role in this environment change. Again, if you're watching this channel, I assume you share my love of penguins, at least a little. Supporting the African penguin can be very rewarding and a great way to give back. The African penguin's role as a keystone species, impacting other species in the ecosystem with its presence or absence, reflects the interconnectedness of biodiversity as a whole. Losing a key species, like the African penguin, could have larger negative impacts on the environment than what we currently foresee. Hope. While 2035 is fast approaching, there is still hope for the African penguin. I would like to conclude this video with some examples of how wildlife conservation has amended the damages made on endangered species in the past. After European colonists hunted the black rhino to the brink of extinction, with only 2% of the population remaining, conservationists across African countries collaborated to double the population. Wolves in the western United States were hunted to extinction, but were successfully reintroduced in 1995. While these wolves, much like the black rhino, are still being monitored and advocated by conservationists, this progress provides hope for the declining African penguin population. Perhaps one of the most encouraging success stories of rehabilitation was the return of the little blue macaw. It was announced that this bird, famous for inspiring the creation of the character Blue from the movie Rio, was extinct in the wild in 2019. This was primarily caused by illegal hunting of this species for the international pet trade. However, by 2024, Brazilian researchers were able to reintroduce members of this species back into the environment with the hopes of the species repopulating. It is possible that the number of people who were moved by the characters in the movie Rio made a difference in propelling the efforts to save this species. The battle for survival is far from over for the little blue macaw and the African penguin. Yet, with the hard work of many conservationists and passion from people like you, they still have a fighting chance. Thank you.